Oh yeah, we got to overturn.
You're listening to the E-Men inside the NYPD's Emergency Service Unit. Indeed, you are listening to the E-Men inside the NYPD's Emergency Service Unit, and Volume 20 at that, the milestone volume. Hard to believe. We started this miniseries last year, and it was funny because I was talking with Paulie Perricone from my Bomb Squad miniseries, and he kept mentioning John Lampkin, John Lampkin. He was extolling these praises upon John Lampkin. So I said, you know what, because I'd heard of John Lampkin, let me get him on. And that was Volume 1, and I thought to myself, why not make a miniseries out of this? I already had one for the Bomb Squad, and here we are a year later for Volume 20 with a lot of great conversations preceding us, and a great conversation, I'm sure, tonight. So thank you for that. And when I say thank you, I mean the audience and the E-Men who've been nice enough to come on. Last night was Volume 19 with Kevin Kuchler, who worked in One Truck. And tonight's Volume 20 with my next guest, who was a jack of all trades in a 20-year career at the NYPD. He was a battle-tested veteran who came on during the NYPD's war years of the 1980s. He started in Lower Manhattan's 13th Precinct, which is interesting when you consider where he went to later, because that's where One Truck is, of course, ESU. He got there in 1989 to ESU, and he went from being, I should say, the cop that civilians called when they were in trouble to the cops called when they were in trouble. And what's interesting about him is that he didn't finish his career in ESU. He went in 1997 into the OCCB, Organized Crime Control Bureau, where he later became a detective and worked a lot of interesting cases there. While he was in ESU, he was in FEMA on the Search and Rescue Task Force. So we'll talk about that. And for Volume 20 of the E-Men inside the NYPD's Emergency Service Unit is Mr. Pete Conlin. Pete, welcome. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. How you doing?
Doing well. So like I said, Kevin last night, you tonight. We'll get right into it. First question, the hardest one. I kid, of course. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Douglaston, Queens, out on the border of North Queens.
All right, North Queens.
Yep.
Any family on the job?
I had an uncle that was a cop. He was a captain when I went into the academy. He didn't last too much longer. After that, he had a long career. Zone commander detectives in Queens when he left the job. Never got promoted. Held the rank of captain for a very long time. And my father told me, as I questioned how long and why did he never get made, and apparently he didn't accept any money in the 60s and the 70s. So they refused to promote him. So when he finally just pulled the plug, as zone commander detectives, nice job. But that was the story behind him. But other than that, that was it. No brothers, cousins, nothing.
He was an honest cop.
You just now have the biggest family of, in the world of cops, of course. But yeah, it's okay.
Right. Yeah, well, good. Good on him, though, for being honest. He retired with this integrity.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, I don't know. He never talked about the job. So, all right.
So with a guy like that really was shy about talking about his experiences, and as you said, more specifically, never really talked about it, it's hard to develop an interest. So I'll say, what made you want to join, especially during the time that you did, so much was going on.
Frankly, I had 4 older brothers with, varying degrees of success. I was a blue collar kid. I never went to college. I was in a union, one union after the other. I was in the laborers union. I was in the steam fitters union. I was in the bridge painters union. Had some interesting jobs there. Guys that know the city, I was on the Archer Avenue subway job when I was just a big hole in the ground as a laborer. I painted or worked inside of nuclear submarines in Connecticut with the Bridge Painters Union. Also worked inside of a nuclear reactor in Boston, Pilgrim 1, the nuclear reactor plant there. Those are some pretty interesting jobs. And then I ended up as a steam fitter. I had a pretty good job, but everybody thought I could do better. So I had taken a few civil service tests. I took the police test in 82. And in 84, after a couple of years as a fitter, there was 2 books, A and B. The guy promised me the A book. He never came through. So I pulled the plug on the steam fitters, and just in order to prove a point to some of my family members, I guess, I went into the police academy. I had no desire to be a cop, never wanted to be a cop. I wasn't a friend of a cop, but my friends couldn't believe it. But it worked out for me.
I would say so.
Yeah. It was a good thing. It was a good thing for me. structure and things like that. You know, my house was a little crazy. You know, Irish Catholic. You know, go to church Sunday and then drink the other 7 days of the week. You know, so typical. You know, it is what it was. But you know, good house, nice house in Queens. You know, but you know, so yeah, I did it.
You did indeed. This is volume 20 of the E-Man inside the NYPD's Emergency Service Unit. This is episode 202 of the Mike the New Haven podcast. We just hit the 200th milestone episode on Friday, so now we're on the other side. And of course, shout out to our friends tuning in so far: Joe Maliga, Howard Blank, and of course, Mr. Steven Stefanakis. He says, "Hey, Pete," sends his regards. Huh. So good to see you, Steve. Steve's always a loyal supporter of the show. I appreciate it.
Good dude, man. Very good guy.
And again, as we've covered numerous times, he's still doing it out in 10 Truck in Queens, holding it down.
Good guy. Yep.
The last of the housing emergency rescue. And of course, Howard Blank, I appreciate you as well, the retired Taru detective. And John Latanzio just tuned in, of course, a veteran of housing emergency rescue as well, and 5 and 3 Truck respectively. So welcome, John. Thanks for being here as well. So you get into the 13th precinct, which is right in Lower Manhattan. That's a great place to start. And I mentioned 1 Truck being there, and that's cool too. But just as a precinct, forget 1 Truck for a second. I just went there recently for my ride along. What a great neighborhood. So much to do. A little quiet side street. But nevertheless, when you get beyond that, it's anything but. It's so active. It had to be the perfect training ground for you.
Yeah. Not my first choice. I did my NSU in the South Bronx. And back in the day, so I lived in Queens. So I had to go over a bridge. And the toll was probably 50 cents. But back then, when you're only making 400 a week or so, you know, that was a little chafe on the pocket. So I went to that uncle on the job guy, asked him if he could get me into the 113 or the 103 in Queens, 2 of the busiest houses in Queens, and ended up in the 13th. So somebody couldn't get their math right or the numbers correct, but there's a 13 in both of those precincts, and I end up in Manhattan. But, you know, a great place. You know, the guys in 1 Truck ended up being great guys, of course. You know, you're right there. The precinct was a nighttime spot, very busy during the day, commercially. But at night, on the west side, you had the Limelight, you had Chevys, you had the Cadillac Club, you had Stringfellows, which was one of the first, you know, gentlemen's clubs in the city. Yeah, Peter Stringfellow, a British guy, came in and opened up this club. Fabulous. Of course, we weren't allowed in there, you know, but, you know, we could pass by. But the Limelight was big. And so I got there in 85. And in 86, the Mets were happening. Mm-hmm. And they hung out in the precinct. So that was pretty good. We gave a lot of those guys a ride home so they could make curfew. No doubt about that. Yeah, no doubt. And they'd be out there flagging cabs coming out of the clubs. Take care of them. Yeah, they were good guys.
Yeah, Doc Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, Gary Carter, the late Gary Carter. You know that. Yeah, I'm a Yankee fan actually, but man, that was a heck of a team, and they got a great team this year, I must say. You know. Yeah,
hanging in there. Yeah, took a beating last night, but that's all right.
Yeah, too bad my Yankees are slacking. I mean, you know, they got a 9.5 game. They got a 9.5 game lead in the division.
You're not going to hear anything out of me other than that's a shame.
No, that's all right. No, listen, they got it. They're up 9. They're up 9 in the division, so they have room to slump. But you'd like to see them get it together, of course. But
the Yankees are never out of it. The Yankees are never out of it.
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
But that's all right. Yeah. I'm a Met fan. We're good.
Yeah, you're good. You're great this year. You're certainly.
No,
great.
I meant Gotcha.
Of course. Yeah. So, you know, I will say, just a quick aside, you know, I did mention 1 Truck being in that precinct. You get the chance. We were talking a little bit off the air to really observe them. And there's great E-Man there. One of them's actually in the chat. He always watches, and that's Billy Kennedy, who you certainly remember. And, you know,
sure.
these are
Billy very well.
Of course, you know, these are very skilled guys that are consistently getting it done in such, as I said, a densely populated area. For a young cop, how much of an impression did that make on you?
Well, it was huge. So, you know, the thing was, if it wasn't in the 13th, you didn't get to see what they were doing. You read about it. Certainly, you know, 1 Truck was, you know, kind of in and around the news a lot. And you could see what they were doing. And a lot of guys wanted to be part of it. And it was not easy to get into. Very few spots. So you had to be lucky or good. So,
or both,
or both. Yeah. Or of course, you know, you could know somebody, and that always helps too. Yeah. So, but to watch them, and they were good guys. Like I said, you know, they were always engaged with the cops, the young cops like myself. They'd talk to you, answer questions, you know, come to a job, if you kind of had to call them during dinner or something. Oh, sorry, it was a lockout. Nah, don't worry about it, kid. It was never a problem. Call us anytime, anytime. That was the mantra, right? Anytime, baby, anytime. And it was true, and you saw it, and it was great. Yeah, it gave me a want to work there. As new in my career, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But then I got in an incident and that changed kind of my direction in my career, if you will. And in the 13th, which was a very quiet place, I could say, it's very nice. But in 1985, I'll say probably 86, early 86, a hotel was called the Prince George Hotel, 14 East 28th Street. Went from being a beautiful tourist attraction and, just off Madison Park on Fifth Avenue between Fifth and Madison to I believe it was Section 8. And there was about 600 families, 600 rooms in that hotel. And they emptied that hotel and they filled it with 600 families. That, if 99% of them were good people. But, all you need is that one group that's going to take the building down. And they did. And that precinct went from very quiet to very busy, very quick. Crack was out, epidemics. So you had people dealing in the hotel. Prostitution comes with that. There was a lot of prostitution in the 13th at night. Not too many day walkers, but because Madison Avenue was Madison Avenue. But at night, they came out, no doubt, and enforced with drugs and the pros. And 13th Precinct was very busy, very busy. Yeah.
Freaks come out at night.
Yeah, I wasn't going to sing that. You go right ahead, but that's what I was thinking. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So March of '86, we got a call about a shots fired at the hotel. I was only 2 blocks away with a partner, a guy named Kevin Yorkie. I was just reading the paper. It was early in the afternoon, 4:30 tops, Palm Sunday, actually. And got a call about shots fired. We head right over there, of course. Mark Makowski or Markowitz, one of those names, was out in front of the hotel on the radio. We get to him. He points out the direction of flight. 2 guys take off. He said, I think they carjacked a car. So we get onto Fifth Avenue. We get him in sight, chase him down to Madison, cross over to Park Avenue. And there was a fire truck there. I saw it up ahead, blocking. And I put over dispatch. We didn't have, we couldn't talk to the fire dispatchers. But the 911, our dispatchers could talk to their dispatchers. So I said, please call that. There's an engine up in front of me. Tell them to stay where they are. Hold the car where it is. This way they can't get out. Well, they were trying to do the right thing because I had lights and sirens. They pulled up and blocked traffic on Park Avenue, and the perps got out. Brief chase halfway up between 26th and 27th, and they bail out of the car. Myself and Kevin get out as well. The passenger shoots at me first. I shoot back. He goes down. He's DOA right there. And the other guy takes off in the car, but he doesn't know how to drive a clutch. So the car, he was having a hard time the whole time. The car was pitching and bucking. Then he bailed, then I caught him too. So big job, great job. Nobody hurt, no civilians, nothing. I had a lot of witnesses. It even would have passed today, believe it or not, I think. But, that kind of changed my career. I was given a Combat Cross, my first medal, second highest medal the job gives out. And, I was only 9 months out of NSU. So, I didn't have a thought of where I would go next, but I was asked where I wanted to go next. Even a detective, an old salt of a guy, came in with a little cigar and he says, who's the shooter here? And I said, me. He said, too bad, kid. 10 years ago, they would have given you a shield for that. Now, probably not. And he left the room. I never saw the guy again. I have no idea who the guy was. He just walked in, said that what he had to say, and he left. I don't know. But it was a nice thing. And one of Art Monahan was a lieutenant, called me and asked me, do I have any plans because of what happened? I will have a chip. I could probably make, go wherever I wanted to. And I actually originally said street crime because I wanted to be in plain clothes. That's what I thought I wanted to do. Run around the city, plain clothes. But he directed me back to emergency. He said, "Why don't you go?" Jack Casey asked about you. Why don't you go see Jack Casey? And anybody listening, of course, it's the commander. So you don't say no to that, no matter what. So I went in and spoke to him. But then when he found out I only had 9 months out of NSU, I was still on probation. So I had to wait 3 years. But I loved the patrol. Patrol was great. And then a bunch of guys on the 13th, O'Connor, Nagelberg, Moran, Johnny Brown. I'm probably going to forget somebody. O'Connor said. All these guys were 13 precinct guys. So it was very easy for me to just still kind of be able to pal around with them. They're next door with the patch. I don't have the patch. So I waited my time, no problem at all. And then 89 came around, and I got my shot, so I took it.
This is Volume 20 of the E-Men inside the NYPD's Emergency Service Unit. Pete Conlin's our guest tonight, of course. He spent 7 of his ultimately 20-plus year career in the ESU, of course. He worked in 2 truck primarily, as we'll discuss a little bit later on. He was neighbored next to 1 truck. And a few more shout-outs here in the chat. We got Marie McGovern watching tonight. She says, anytime, no problem, continues long after your shift and career. Friends for life. So thank you for saying that, Maureen. And I see you, Dizzy, in the chat. Thank you for tuning in, brother, as well. You, Dizzy. Got a great channel in the zone, right? A lot of cool first responder videos that you need to check out if you want to. So I don't mean to make it somber, but while you were working in the 13th, that's when Frank LaSala was killed in 87 in the fire. I knew what happened, but it wasn't until Billy Kennedy came on and explained exactly what happened that, man, it just really breaks your heart to see that. I don't know how well you knew Frank, but what do you remember most about him?
Didn't know Frank. Like I said, my connection there besides was really the guys from the 13th. I wouldn't try to say I knew Frank LaSalle at all. He was a very nice guy. I know who he was. It was a tragedy. I was just a rookie cop. I couldn't even begin to imagine what the guys in the truck were going through. I know it hit hard, very hard. It was hard to watch, the guys, but you got to keep going, so they did. But LaSalle, he put it on. He went in, fight the fight, save a life, give your own, to do it. That's what we did. And a lot of guys paid with their lives. So it's all unfortunate, but that's what we signed on for.
I've always said, and I've never made this trip myself. I want to. I think I first said it when I was interviewing Amanda Farinacci a little while ago. She's the FDNY press secretary. I'm like, the word hero gets thrown around a lot and the word sacrifice gets thrown around a lot. I think if you want to have an idea, there's 2 places in New York City you should go to. First one's 1PP and look at all the names on that wall. And then when you're done there, go over to Brooklyn, go to FDNY headquarters and look at their wall. A lot of names, a lot of names, but the same mission, as John Latandio says, if not us, then who? That's right. That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So just, in a patrol car before I get to 89, especially in a neighborhood like that, you look out the window and it doesn't even have to be anything criminal. You just see so many unique things. There's something about Manhattan you just won't see anywhere else. And that's no disrespect to the other major cities. I know LA cops can tell you they've seen a thing or two, but that neighborhood, it's a cavalcade of different people from different backgrounds, and it makes one beautiful mosaic. What are some of the more unique things you can recall seeing just on patrol alone?
Well, it's kind of like you could say anywhere, and I paid. I drove around a toll, but I could pay the toll, whatever. But you would pay to see what we saw. It was, you can't say one thing. It was the 13th precinct was its own at night. Like you said before, the freaks came out, and that was at the clubs, and you go by and watch the outfits, what people would wear, and and then just go back to. I lived in Queens. It wasn't the same show, but every day was different. If you worked the midnights, you saw the seedy side of the precinct. You had the pros team that would go out at night, and they would do their job. And if I worked in a SNU unit, which was Street Narcotics Enforcement in the precinct. We had a lot of drugs. 14th Street was a lot of drugs, a lot of heroin, a lot of pills. So it was not really a lot of good. There was a lot of shit. There was a lot of nonsense in the 13th precinct in the 80s. It just got bad.
Yeah.
But we were lucky enough to be able to have the power to shut it down and clean it up. We
Yeah,
did a good
eventually
job.
you guys did a great job with it, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Yeah.
reminded of Bob Masucci. I think Bob started his career in the 13th too, if I'm not mistaken, before he went into ESU in '95. And it was funny because he would literally be driving in his patrol car. I remember him telling me last year when he was on, he'd just see somebody and you just go, just because of how somebody
Yeah.
with green hair up to here,
Yeah.
yeah, just
But
things
this
like
is
that.
not hurting anybody. That's just,
Yeah.
we weren't allowed to, you couldn't voice your opinion. You had to be apolitical. You had to be asocial. You had to be in the middle of everything. You couldn't pick a side. You couldn't go to a demonstration and pick a side because you just couldn't. You might wanted to,
In
and
your
if you
head.
did, then maybe you went and took your uniform off and got involved in the background or something. But it was part of the show. The guys in one truck, they'll tell you, ask them the shows that they saw at Bellevue, some of the things that they came across between the Village East and West Village. Forget about it. You couldn't even talk about it. There were too many stories, too many scenes. It's great. Yeah, it's the same right now. I just spent 2 weeks in Times Square working in security detail, and it's the same thing. You sit on the corner and watch it go by. It's okay. It's New York. It's all right. Yeah.
Quick note before I
It's
continue.
horrible. The city's a freaking nightmare, but I carry a gun, so I'm good.
Well, these days you kind of need to. And thank you,
I don't
Sergeant
know.
Kennedy, in the chat for correcting me. Bob was in the 1/7. I knew he was in one of the team precincts. I didn't know which one, but it was in the 1/7. Yeah, or excuse me, not 1/17th or whatever. 17th. You get the point. I can't speak today. The heat's getting to me. But anyway, it's funny because you mentioned that being retired now, it has to be a relief just to watch it go by. Unless it comes to you, you don't got to do nothing. You could just chill out, even on a security detail.
Oh yeah, no, it was I did it on purpose. I was actually providing security for a group of young employees that were in town for training. So at night they did, they were allowed to go out. They were all college graduates and do whatever they want. So I took the time. I just walked down to Times Square and, I was right up the block. So sit on the corner and watch it happen. It's nothing changed. It's just, you look at it and you can't get into it, but the drugs and just wide out there, and unfortunately, these cops have to stand there and let it happen. It's awful.
Yeah,
It's awful.
no,
Yeah, it is. But people are back. Tourists are the ones that make the city run. So, it's our own New Yorkers that ruin it too. So, anyway,
but anyway,
move on. Yeah.
We get to 89, and when we get to STS. Now, what's interesting is that when guys are coming into emergency or gals, they often look at your background. Are you mechanically inclined? Do you have a construction background? If you live out on the island, are you a volunteer in the fire department out on the island?
Yeah.
Do you feel that having the background in construction helped you in this sense when you were trying to get into ESU?
No, I think it was the combat cross that got me into ESU.
Well, besides that, of course.
That's what it was. I mean, I had a background in some things, but it's kind of that got me the interview, and I was in some trades, so I'm sure it didn't hurt me. But
the combat cross was the primary thing, of course.
It got me the invite. That's for sure.
By Jack Casey, no less, of all people.
By Jack Casey, because he didn't have one.
Right.
So he had every other medal and 10 of them, but he didn't have one of those. And that's, but he's the commander. So, in fact, I had to, when he brought me in, when I finally got out of STS, there is a one truck STS story that I would tell too, with Canavan, Bobby Canavan, and Paulie Kaczynski. Those two guys. I was on a training. They let us out of school for a week, which is a mistake. They shouldn't have done that. But because then you go back to the school and you don't want to, you've already been in the street. You want to get back onto the street. And for me, we got a confirmed jumper on the Williamsburg Bridge. And Canavan Kaczynski let me suit up, get the ropes on, and walk up with them up the cable. That was awesome. And then they Canavan, let the kid bring him down. So I walked the guy down, I have a picture of it somewhere around here. But so I got a taste. I was still in STS and I got a bridge job. Some guys go a long time without getting to climb that cable. And if you stand around long enough, you'll have footprints on your back if you don't get on that bridge, So that was a big one. One truck and 8 truck used to go at it all the time. Who could get to the bridge first? It's great. It's great. Yeah. The camaraderie and the competition, couldn't beat it. And to climb a bridge.
Yeah.
Who does that?
No.
Extraordinary men and women. That's who.
E-Men, baby. E-Cops. E-Cops in general.
Yeah.
This is volume 20 of the E-Men inside the NYPD's Emergency Service Unit. And this is Pete Conlin, who joins me for this milestone volume. And thanks to everybody who's watching tonight in the chat. Like I said, if you had a question for Pete, fire away. And if I don't get to it right away, I will definitely... What was that?
Oh, shit. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try to I'm not answering that question. Move on. And I'm taking the fifth.
Yeah, of course. Statute of limitations might have run out, but nevertheless, you want to make sure you don't risk it. So that's it. I mean, you go to Two Truck, and Two Truck's area is really, I remember reading this in Anytime, Anywhere. It's on my bookshelf right in front of me by Sam Katz, and he chronicled the year of '97 in Two Truck alone. Its area is so vast. I mean, you look at One Truck's area, yeah, that's a pretty large area too. And even if you don't move beyond the 13th precinct, if they just had that area alone, it's a lot to do. But getting out to Two and seeing just the difference in New York City, you see certain neighborhoods in Harlem that are very ritzy-ditzy, very fancy. You see others that are like a war zone. How interesting was that for you, especially in a truck like that I feel, and maybe guys will disagree, is really unsung because it gets overshadowed by the rest of Manhattan. Working in Harlem, man, nothing beats it.
Yeah, it was kind of a place that I wanted to go. I was trying to get into that kind of gritty area at NSU, coming from the South Bronx and working in the 4-1 and the 4-3. The 4-9 opened, but we got sent to the 4-6 too, which was fabulous. But I couldn't get it. I couldn't stay there. So the Heights, Washington Heights, and above 57th Street and further up, above 96th Street, was always somewhere I wanted to work. Myself and my partner, Kevin Brown. But when the transfer came in, I did get trained in Two Truck and had flown to one. That's how I ended up with those guys on the training detail. But then I got assigned to One Truck. And I went in. It was one of the hardest things to do, but I went to Jack Casey and I said, Sarge, if it's all the same to you, I would really like to work at Two Truck. And I did that. He goes, I worked in Two Truck for years. I know exactly why you want to work there. Take your bag and drive up there. I'll make a phone call. You'll be transferred. So I did. It was very nice of him. I appreciated it, greatly, because I did want to have a chance to work up there. And I got the opportunity. My first night was not the golden career night that you want to have going into a command. I'd never been uptown, further than Central Park. So I had no idea what Two Truck was. And it's kind of planted away next to the 2-6 on between Old Broadway. You guys know what we're talking about.
If you blink, you miss it.
I couldn't find it. So I made a fatal mistake. I knew the number of One Truck because I worked in the 13th, so I knew their number off the top of my head. So I called there. I got a guy that was in STS with me, Tommy Toscano. Don't know who he is. Tommy, you got to do me a favor. Where the hell is this freaking truck? I can't find it. It's midnight, mind you, midnight. He tells me where it is. I said, thanks. All right, no problem. So I hang up, pay phone, no cell phone, pay phone. So now I go to the truck. I ring the bell, got my bag. And I see they got a camera. So I'm waiting, nothing. Then the intercom. Yeah, who is it? I said, Conlin, we signed here. And a guy named Ray Ruiz. Oh, my God.
I know him, yep.
Yeah. He starts screaming into the thing, help me, I'm lost. Help me. And he's screaming. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, it's midnight. My first midnight in years. And I'm getting yelled at. You stand there, you lost, pick your bags up, stand there and wait for us to come down. Everybody's yelling in the thing at me. And, I'm like, oh, my God, what did I get myself into? I can't believe this. I never got spoken to like this, right? So a guy named Henry Medina, he finally comes down. He opens the door. He said, come on in. He said, don't worry about those guys. I said, all right, no problem. So that was my first night. And walking into the room, you're told back in the day, you didn't go into the kitchen. You get your coffee and you go downstairs and you go over the truck when you're new. You don't sit at the gray table with the seniors. And I was very fortunate. I got to work with the senior members, guys like Pete Dam and Vinny Fagan, George Toth. The guys know what I'm talking about. Chris Brower, other guys that I'll forget. That were Pete Dam was 62 years old. I'm 62 now. I'll be 62 in December. This guy taught me how to rappel. 62 years old, sitting on the edge of a helicopter, telling me, "All right, get your ass out." Just the best. It was great. But one of the first guys I met was a guy named Frank Langan. He's a character, big time. Now I have to be careful with how I put this. So Frank was off duty and enjoying a adult beverage at the time, and I walked in the room. A bunch of old timers sitting at the table, did my thing, got my coffee, turned to walk out. Frank says, "Where you going?" I said, "I'm going to go down. I'm going to go down the truck. I'm going to pull the truck apart and go over it and do the way we were told." He goes, "No. You're going to sit down, and we're going to go over the rules of two truck. Now sit down." So, what do you say, right? So they let me sit at the table, and then they told me, "Now, go on, get the hell out of here." But things there were different, so I had to. You got to get accepted. You go along. That's what it was. It was great. I don't regret 1 minute of it. Never will. Never did. Yeah, it was awesome.
Really right on cue as you were telling the story. Ray's, who's going to be on the show in October, says, "Hey, Pete, great to see you, brother. Yes, great times with you."
Yeah. We just can't talk about too many of them, Ray. That's just it.
You just have to clean it up. And look who's here.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this clean-shaven, handsome devil here, Paulie Perricone. He's watching tonight.
Yeah.
Good
Hey,
to see you,
Paulie.
Paul.
Yeah. That's my boy right there. I like Paulie.
Yeah, good man. And he'll be back on the show soon as well. He was in Truck One.
And so many guys. There's very few guys in emergency that you would say disparaging remarks about. There were some, but it's every unit, right? Everybody had them. Something in the truck, some not in the truck, whatever. But everybody, you know what? When the bell rang, there was very few guys you couldn't count on to do the right thing, no matter what. I mean, we did some pretty hairy stuff. So, that was it was just good. It was fun.
And we'll talk about it briefly. Just quick note on Paul. Of course, he finished out his career in the bomb squad. Congratulations to Paul. He just started up a cool new job. He's out of retirement. He took a 2-year break like Jordan after 93 to 95, but he's back in business. So good for Paul. Congratulations, brother. Happy to hear that. So, with you mentioned Medina. He's an interesting guy. I would love to get him on the show, and I read so much about him. And anytime, anywhere, he's there. I'm trying to remember who else besides Henry Medina was there. Obviously, John DeLero was there too for a period of time. He started out in 3, then he went to 2. You got Jimmy Spratt there, Seth Garr, who came over upon the merger.
Spratt's up by me. Yeah, Seth Garr was an interesting, very interesting guy. Yeah. I saw him unfortunately recently at the funerals last winter. But he's up in New Hampshire. I was doing a job up there. Very funny. I was doing a security job. I knew he was up there. And I asked the state trooper on the road if it was a road block or something. And I said, "Hey, is Seth Garr working?" I just threw it at him. He goes, "Yeah, he's probably in the office." So I go to their building. He's not working, but I get a captain and I start talking to him. And he goes, "You worked with Seth Garr?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Come to my office." And he's got the New England accent I won't do, but it was like talking to Cliff Clavin and all these guys. So we sit down. He goes, "There's something about Seth, but we had to take him off the street. He doesn't drive fast enough." And it's hysterical. Now, anybody who knows Seth knows the guy drove 10 and 2. I think he learned how to drive to get this job because he was awful. Nobody would let him drive the truck. I don't think he was allowed to drive the big truck. And he's like, "Petey, man, could you let me drive the truck tonight?" And I'd be like, "No, not on my watch. No. You do that with somebody else." I couldn't be responsible for him driving. He was awful. Even the New Hampshire State Police would not let. They put him on the. Hey, listen, the guy's a great guy, and he's perfect for what he's doing. He's in like a group that helps the officers, MOS support. Remember the service support groups and things like that. That's what he does. So that's a great guy to have for that. Demeanor is perfect. But yeah, he couldn't drive. Very funny. Lara was not a driver either.
No, I've heard
nobody wanted to drive with. Yeah.
I've heard that.
Yeah, he was senior man. I couldn't say nothing if he wanted to drive, but there was some nail marks in the dashboard with him too.
Oh God,
he was a scary guy to drive with. Yeah.
There was a couple stories with him because Owen McCaffrey told me this off the air one time. It was funny, and I wouldn't say it if it was anything inappropriate. Obviously, never want to disparage John. He's a good man, and he gave his life heroically. he said he drove like a grandma because I guess there was shots fired call and cops were being shot at. And he's like, "Cops are being shot at, John. But Sarge, we got to get there safely. We're never going to get there at this rate, John."
Man. He's a good guy, man. John's a great dude.
No, very good guy. Eugene Venezio's watching. He says, "Hey, Mike, how's it going? Can you please ask Pete if you work with John Heidrich in Ten Truck?"
I did not. Okay. I did not. The guys I knew in 10 truck, like Langone, of course.
Yeah.
He was with me in 95. We went to Oklahoma together. And I was out of there in 97. I don't even remember the name.
Yeah.
So sorry. Yeah.
I think Ray Buckowitz was in 10, and
Ray, I know. I knew Ray. I knew
Glenn
his father
Klein.
too. I
Glenn
knew his
Klein was in
father.
10.
Glenn, I knew, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Good guys. And
Ray's
Steph's in
father
10.
was a great guy. Sorry?
Stephanakis is in 10.
Okay. Yeah.
Been there a long time. And I think
Nice
Richie
truck.
Winwood. Yeah, very
Well,
nice.
that brings me back to what you asked before about what you see and whatnot. So that's a perfect example. I lived in Douglaston and Little Neck, so it's across the boulevard. It doesn't matter. It was 10 minutes away from 10 truck, basically. And guys in the unit would be like, "Why don't you go to 10 truck? Why would you pay the toll?" I said, you can't pay. It's like going to the circus here uptown. It was just what was going on was amazing. There was great people, and like you were saying before, if you were on Riverside, these beautiful townhouses on the river and this and that, but you go 2 blocks over, and everybody's carrying a gun. Everybody's got a kilo in their car or in a bag walking down the street. It was a show. I don't know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time there.
It was Miami Vice meets New York City, basically, during that era.
Yeah, there was a lot of drugs out there, that's for sure.
But you weren't wearing the suits that Crockett's and Tubbs were to go in there and stop them. You were wearing those heavy Kevlar vests.
Yeah. That was TV. Yeah.
Couple of other guys that are being mentioned in the chat. I think in 2, Billy Kennedy mentioned Bobby Schnebley, and Ray Ruiz mentioned and Eddie O'Neill as well.
Yeah. Eddie and Bobby were in the squad. We had 3, 6, and 9. Eddie and Bobby were legends in the truck. Eddie O'Neill was the PBA delegate. Great guy, master carpenter, very knowledgeable E-man. Could always kind of had his thing. He had a plan, and Bobby too. Brilliant mind. He's a nut. I mean, he's but one of the best guys. He's a guy you want to be with. You wouldn't want to be with somebody else, but he was a guy who he laughed at the job and he took it serious when we had to. We had great times at 2 Truck. We had great camaraderie. We helped each other out. Bobby had a house up in Maine, still does, and he'd have 10 of us up there for a weekend of debauchery, fishing mostly, but if we got any fishing in, I don't even remember. But it was a good time, and 2 Truck was like that. It was a lot of the trucks were like that. Some weren't, but ours was pretty tight. We did a lot of things together. John McCarter was a big part of that. I don't know if you've spoken to John.
I haven't. I heard of him though.
Yeah, good dude. He's had some battles with illness here and there, 9/11 stuff.
Yeah.
I think he's doing a little better right now. Haven't seen him. He lives up by me, up north, as does Eddie O'Neill, who I've seen. Bobby, I see, he works for the Yankees, been working for the Yankees a long time. We talk occasionally. He lives up here too. Bobby, they were characters. He was a great guy. Yeah, still is. Yeah.
I'll get to FEMA in a second, but just quickly because it popped into my head when Washington Heights was burning down in, what was it, 92? Did you work that?
I mean, I was there. I don't know exactly what you.
When Kiko Garcia got shot by Mike O'Keefe, it was a justified shooting. Kiko fired at Mike. Mike fired back, killed him. They said that it was they tried to frame it because some witnesses lied, tried to make it seem like O'Keefe just executed him, but that wasn't true. And
I remember I do remember the the marches and whatnot. We just followed behind.
I know at night it got out of control.
Yeah, that happened not fairly often, but enough, and it got really out of hand when the bucket came off the roof, and the housing officer, I'm going to lose his name now.
John Williamson.
Yeah. I was working that night, bucket of cement come off the roof and hit him in the head. So, we'd get set up. They, if you just kind of had to watch, you wear your helmet, like you taught, and because stuff's coming off the roof.
Airmail.
They'd make the call, and you'd go up to a rooftop, and there'd be all bottles and rocks up there, and they're waiting for you to come. So, you kind of had to deal with that. But there was good people up there. I'd stop and watch the Dominoes or whatever. Maybe have a cold Heineken. I don't know, maybe.
Allegedly.
But they were, with the red star on it. Yeah. But there was good people up there. But the work was great. The cops were fabulous. I mean, the cops were just down and dirty. And we had their back all day long. There was a guy who came up to the truck one day. He was a 7 truck guy. I won't mention his name. Good, very good guy. Very good guy. But he didn't like division radio. He just wanted to stay in the lane of SOD. And when we get called to the real job, we'll go to that. He didn't, But I liked, because the 3-4, the 3-3, these guys were always involved in something. There were shootings all the time. I like to go. So I said, look, we're listening. We were riding along. He goes, oh, you're not going to listen to division radio, are you? I said, yeah, I am. That's it. And we had a job, of course, at a Blarney Stone on 161, and shots fired. He's kind of, it's all right. There was guys that were just kind of riding the pine sometimes, but it's okay. It was fine.
I will say, and I think I should mention FEMA, because it's so interesting how it got started up. I think Mike Core was pretty instrumental in getting ESU into FEMA.
Yeah, he was always into that part of the operation, the OEM, Office of Emergency Management, and things of that nature. It wasn't really there was a lot of guys involved, and most of them and God bless them all for being volunteer firemen on Long Island. But that was the core group of guys who really put that together. I had nothing to do with firefighting or rescue work. I like the gun jobs. That was kind of my thing. The rescue work was great. I got to do some great rescues, get in on some of them. Early on, Henry Medina and I were hanging off the George Washington Bridge. I think it was one of my first tours at a SC. Yeah, this guy, I don't have his picture, but he did it downtown too, in the 1 truck area. His name was Mega Man. He was a paraplegic activist, and he'd hang himself off the bridge in a wheelchair. And they did it down in 1 truck. I'm positive they did. And then we had him up at the bridge, George Washington Bridge, one morning, and they the guys going to work, the construction guys who got delayed from their start. Some of these guys would just kind of hand you their knife when they were driving by. Cut the ropes, because they knew the guy was hanging from clothesline. It was unbelievable what the guy did. He had 3 lines securing him. He was hanging, a couple 100 feet off the water. So we came up with a system that they had, a hauling system that we used, and got him hooked up and brought him in. But the rescue work was big, and Mike Cole was instrumental in starting the FEMA team for sure. Yeah.
So you're in there. It's you guys, as well as obviously some of the FDNY rescue guys. I know Ray Downey was instrumental on the FDNY side in that as well. I didn't know Danny Richards from the bomb squad was a FEMA guy as well. I learned that later when I was doing my homework on him. But you had him there too.
Yep.
Good man.
Yeah, there was 25 E-men, 25 firemen, a couple from the bomb squad, 4, maybe a team and a dog. I don't really remember, but there was definitely bomb squad guys. There was K9 guys.
Yep.
We had EMS people from our side. They had their own too. Heading out there, we were 2 separate entities. Coming back, we were pretty close. We ended up doing all right.
OKC in 95, you were telling me about off the air. I think because so much happened in the 90s, people forget about this particular terrorist attack, because I think I forget who I was saying this to off the air, that I was saying that, that was, when people think of terrorism, obviously in a post 9/11 landscape, they think of Middle Eastern terrorism, because that's what you've seen a lot of in recent years. But that wasn't Middle East. That was Middle America with what Tim McVeigh did. Tim McVeigh was seemingly an all-American guy that did an evil, evil thing. So getting
Nichols,
down there,
and Terry Nichols,
right? Yes, Terry Nichols as well. When you get down there, some rescues were made, but it was mostly a recovery effort. But just to see the devastation, to work hand in hand with the guys from ESU and the FDNY guys, Mike Curtin and Ray Downey had a great moment down there. Tell me about your personal experiences in OKC.
Well, Mike and I and the team had some of it. It was awful. I'm not going to compare it to anything else, because you can't. These things don't compare. It's one of those things where you think you may have seen it all until that happens, and that's what happened in emergency all the time. You just see something that you never thought you would see. Oklahoma was a tough one because so first of all, for me, I was playing basketball, got home around 10, 11 at night from the gym. and the phone rang about 1 a.m. It was Mike Core. And he said, get your toothbrush and a few things. You don't need anything. We're going to Oklahoma. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. The bombing was at 9:08 or something like that. And, guys at the basketball game were asking me, you think you'll go? I played with a lot of cops and firemen from my neighborhood. We were all tight. I said, I don't know. I haven't heard anything yet. Probably not, I guess. But sure enough, there we were at Kennedy waiting to go. So, then we get there, and we were sent there because there was a team from California that didn't get along with the Oklahoma City firemen. Now, these guys lost some guys, and that was, this is it's their house, and they kind of tried to take over, and they requested that they be removed from the site, and FEMA did, and we got into the rotation. That's how we got there. That's what I was told. I'm pretty sure that's the story. What you see walking up to it, I was there. I was at the Trade Center in '93, and of course, it wasn't the devastation that we had, but still the terrorist act. But you couldn't see it was underground. It wasn't as obviously as extreme. So seeing the building for the first time was just you've never seen it. Whatever, you've seen all the pictures. And then, we get to work, and I was on a team that worked from 7 at night till 7 in the morning. And, little things happen while you're going along, little things that you don't really kind of think of until later on. We slept on cots in a Marriott Convention Center, I think it was called, kind of like our Javits Center. And the kids from the high school, the students from we called them Baptist-Costal because everybody was Baptist or Pentecostal, worshipers in Oklahoma. They call themselves that, so because you never could know who you were talking to. But these kids, every night when I went to, every night when I went to work and came back, my bed was made and there was chocolate on my pillow every night. They didn't have to do that for us. They did it for the other shift too. They did it for every team that was there. Unbelievable, to make you comfortable because we were helping them. The nicest people in the world. Fabulous, for this to happen to these people. Then what happens to us, because we're the only team that has law enforcement agents on it, which was us, the law enforcement community that was in the building, and there was quite a bit, FBI, you just name a bunch of, law enforcement federal agencies, they were in the building. It's a federal building, right? So these people would come to us with the pictures of their loved ones to our tent and hand you a picture and say, this is my wife. She was wearing a blue dress. Could you please find her? And now it became personal. Everybody had a name. There was a face. And I know anybody that knows what, especially the guys in emergency, because we would go to horrific accidents and you would just do it. You didn't know who the people were. You didn't, you did what you had to do. Bundle people with as much dignity as you could. Somebody hit by a train, every 10 pieces, you got to pick them up. It was you didn't know who they were. But in Oklahoma, we did know who they were. And when they were found, most of the people were just sitting at their desk with a chunk of concrete on top of them, a coffee right there in front of them. It was awful. It was really bad, really tough thing for me. It took me a year until I went back. And I did go back a year later with Ricardo and a couple guys for the year anniversary. And I haven't thought about it since, not in that way. I mean, I didn't sleep. I dreamt about it every night for a year, every night. It was awful. So they had, there was 2 Marines lost there, and there was some digging going on in the front of the building, and somebody found the Marine, Captain Guzman. They found a leg. The blood stripe of his leg was uncovered. And once that happened, Mike Curtin, Sergeant Major, Marine Corps, former Beirut Force Recon Marine, the guy been around the world in the
He's in the Gulf War too.
Yeah. So he gets wind of that and he takes over. He goes to the bosses. He said, this is going to get done right. And it's going to get done by Marines. So he grabbed a team of Marines. Manny Hernandez, Juan Garcia. I can picture a guy. He was a paratrooper. He was a paramedic. Damn, I'm sorry, I forget his name. And the doctor was in on it too.
I think Chief Downey as well, because Chief Downey was a Marine.
Yeah, I can tell you he wasn't involved.
Okay,
He
thought
might
he
have
got
been up out of the hole,
no.
but so there was also I end up being involved. I wasn't a Marine, my father was, but that had something to do with it. But there was a tool, a new pneumatic tool that I had been trained in for close, quarters work. And Mike said, "Look, it goes against every grain that I have in the world because you weren't a Marine, but I'm taking you in the hole with me because I need that tool, and you know how to use it. So we're going in." He said, "Plus your father was a Marine, so that's going to help you there too." So there was no joke in here. This was no joke. So they shut down the site over us, on top of us, for 15 hours. They gave us 15 hours to get this guy out. We had him out in 5 hours. Now, a lot went on in that hole, but we got him out all in one piece. And, it was something that I'll never forget. My father had passed away in 90 or 91. And being a former Marine, it was something to like reliving, for him. As they brought out Captain Guzman, draped the Stokes, the site, it shut down totally. There wasn't a dry eye there. It was amazing. Yeah, so that was pretty awesome to be part of. And then the next day, the Staff Sergeant Richardson, I believe his name was, he was recovered as well. So that was a high point, to be part of it. It's part of Marine Corps lore. No Marines have ever been killed on United States soil in an act of war or in the like. So it was kind of a first. I mean, shit. I had neighborhood Marines calling me because I was in Leatherneck magazine. My name was mentioned, and my father. So it was horrible, but it was very special to be part of. It became a very big deal.
There was, I think, and what's interesting is that it came full circle for Mike later, because when Mike died on 9/11, as you guys in the audience know, sadly. And when they found him March 6th of '02, same thing. A bunch of Marines from the local New York City office had come down. Commissioner Kelly, who was also a Marine, came down. His wife, who was also a Marine, came down.
Yeah.
Same thing. Took him a while to get him out of there, but they got
Yep.
him out of where the customs house once was, and they brought him up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'd been sitting there on a steel one day, just taking a break. I had been talking to one of the dads. I'll think of his name in a minute. And Helga, and I was just not feeling it that day. And she just walked up behind me. He's never met Helga, but she's a very powerful woman, and she was a Marine. Mike was her drill sergeant. And so she gives me a big slap on the back. She goes, "Don't worry about it, big guy. They'll find him." Just as simple as that. And I was like, "All right, how the hell are you doing that?" I don't know. Yeah. But she was tight like that, and Danny Cohn, that was great for him to get in there and stay in there, and
I
nobody
love
was
Danny.
going to be left there. Yeah, he's a great dude. Yeah, nobody was going to leave until everybody was found. As best as we could. There wasn't a whole lot of hope there. Not like in Oklahoma, because we didn't have the size of the building either. But we recovered 68% of that body count. It was 168 dead and 19 kids. And the good thing, well, however you want to put it, our last day on the pile, I was digging and I found a slinky. The last thing to be found was the nursery, and that was underneath where we were standing. And I was very happy to be turning over the shifts to the Miami-Dade FEMA team and get off that pile, because I knew it was coming next. It would have been awful. I'm so glad I wasn't there. I had little kids, so it's not good.
Not good. Not good.
Yeah.
I'll get to, because I got to get to we're almost at the hour mark, and I got to get to the OCCB. We haven't even talked about OCCB. Yeah. But just before I show the cops clip view on that raid, because I'm going to do a show on this for my Bomb Squad miniseries later in the year with some of the guys from A&E, Arson Explosion, that is. When Eddie Leary detonated that subway bomb, the fire bomb on the 4 train, did 2 Truck go to that or no?
What year was that?
94, December 9, right before the merger with Transit and Housing.
That was 96.
No, it's December 94.
Well, the merger was in 96.
It was my merger in 95. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, regardless, I might have been off. I don't recall the job.
Well, that one I'll do a show on later in the year. Let's see the other one. I'll get to here. Now we have it. Is you guys did get the merge of well, first you got housing in August of '94. You got their ERU pretty early, and then transit you got in April, which was interesting. But this one here, this is city ESU, no transit, no housing, on a raid in '94 on an episode of Cops. And I can't find the full episodes of Cops that they did on the NYPD anywhere. There's one that they did on transit. It's in its entirety on YouTube. But if somebody could upload those vintage NYPD ones in their entirety, that'd be great. But nevertheless, we have this clip. Here it is. And future Chief of Department Terry Monahan's in the clip. Enjoy.
Down Wadsworth Avenue, cameras on 190th Street itself. When we go in, it's going to be 2 unmarked anti-crime followed by the unmarked van for emergency service. We're going to have unmarked. Rambo, come here. We're going to have plainclothes guys here. When everyone take a look, the plainclothes guys, so you know they're not the first, even though some of them look like them. They're gangsters. When emergency service makes an entry, guys who haven't been on this, they throw these percussion grenades, loud noise. So it is a chance that it could blow out a window. So if you're covering the side alleys or any windows, make sure you back away from windows in case any glass falls out. The unmarked will go to line up, roll in, we'll radio the marked cars to move in when we're on the block. Everyone ready? Let's go.
We'll see.
There's a pretty good chance these guys are going to be out of talking by the time we get there. We got to watch it.
Jump over. Good. Got it. Going out to a warrant. The precinct got a warrant because they got information that the drugs and guns being sold out of the location we're going to right now. Back at 186th Street. Sense goes up. This is it. Was that shot? Shots fired, guys. Shots hit, guys. Was that? All right, it was put your hand back. Okay. You want the sledge?
Check it.
Cut. Let me go to Pete. I get the hand.
We're coming out of here, man. Go to the left. To the left, go right here. Get the keys. Get this guy's keys.
Watch your foot.
Give me this one. Pull the bag out.
Chip.
It's not very long, right? That's what Go.
What apartment is this?
Where the dog are, they shut the door out after.
Police! Perfect door. All doors shut. Who's got the Halligan?
What's up?
Light. Police. Somebody in there?
Oh, it's empty. Clear. Oh, no? No drug. Another working apartment right here. Guns, drugs. The big guy was in there, correct? There's another, there's in the back. What? We should be right here with your body in the back. You got 2 working apartments on the floor. They sent the dog out from here, I believe. The first team up was the anti-crime team to secure the building. Anybody in the stairways or in the lobby was going to be secured by them. And they come in and do the tactic. I don't know if you heard that, but shots fired as we went up the stairs. So changes the whole ball game.
What a rush. And there you are, rocking the vintage E-Man mustache. Yes.
Yeah,
It ends up being a good bus, too.
Oh, yeah, 2 kilos. Yeah, for sure. Those guys were on it. Those they called them locomotion, those cops up there. They were involved. When they were on the air, they were calling for help, and they did. They had no problem asking for help, so we were there all the time. We spent a tremendous amount of time in the 3-4. It was just where everything was. Sometimes if you wanted a break, you drive down into the 2-0, somewhere quiet, whatever. But you didn't have much choice. You always ended up back uptown. It was all right.
More than all right, I would say. So 96, you leave ESU. Like I said, God, we did an hour on on your patrol first and then ESU alone. And we haven't even talked about OCCB yet, which we will now. You leave ESU for OCCB. And it's interesting because, like I was mentioning to you off the air, so many guys I talk to when they leave ESU to get their detective shield, or at least that's one of the missions, and they want to try something different. I'm so used to them going to the bomb squad, because that's in the detective bureau. That's their chance. You went a different route, So going into narcotics at that time, when a lot was going on to really stomp out the drug trade in New York, and it was working with broken windows primarily. What was it that attracted you to specifically that?
Well, quite frankly, the merge, it didn't attract me. I wasn't attracted to narcotics. The last thing I wanted to do was leave emergency. But I drew a line in the sand when the EMRU team was transferred in. They were paid special assignment money. And to me, that was sort of an insult in the front, however you want to put it. I had a friend in the police commissioner's office. Bratton was new at the time and been around. He'd been around for a little bit. He was already, he was the head of MTA police department. So he had his own checkbook, and I knew that too. And when the merge happened, people got promoted and sent in and knocked people out of the NYPD system, out of the box, from getting promoted to detective or first grade, second grade. They took care of their own. It would have happened, whatever. That's the way it is. But I made it an issue, and to the detriment of the office, they weren't too happy with me. But I was able to get Bill Bratton, Jack Maple, and John Miller to come to Two Truck and explain to us why we should be training people that make more money than us when we're not being paid at the same rate. They came up, we made a dinner. It was really nice. We had I laid out my what I was thinking. And of course the commissioner said, you realize I can't do that with a stroke of a pen, the way I could do it there, and everybody knows the story. So when, he left, at least I got to say what I wanted to say about it anyway. But I had made the argument that, why should I stay here when I could go to narcotics and I'm going to get 40 hours a month, weekends off, chart days, and in 18 months, all I got to do is half my job, and you have to promote me to detective. I said, look, he goes, well, how did Medina become a detective here? Why can't you just stay here and become a detective? I said, listen, that's different. He's a specialist, but that's different. That's not what we want. We want to be white shield, cops with special assignment, just like the guys that you're asking us to train to this job. I said, I got 10 years on the job. I've been doing this for 5 years or whatever it was, 6 years. Now I got paid less money, and, that was my thing. So I had the backing of some officers that said they'd leave with me if we didn't get the money. And so long story short is nobody wanted to leave when the time came. And I pulled out the 57 when I got a phone call from the office, and they said, okay, literally verbatim was told, okay, tough guy, you're not getting the money. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to fill out the 57 and I'm going to leave, so I did. I didn't think I would be worth any salt if I didn't. You know, I wasn't one to keep my mouth shut. Guys, there to tell you, I was pretty arrogant, but I thought I was right, and so I made a statement, and I stuck by it, and I ended up in narcotics. You know, but you know, it was fine. I didn't mind being back in, being in plain clothes. The drug business was very busy. I met some great people. We did some great work. You know, for me, leaving emergency was very difficult. It was very hard. In fact, the first weekend that I was sitting at my desk in the South Bronx, Flight 800 on Long Island goes down. You don't think I was going crazy trying to say, why am I sitting here? You know, there goes my guys. There go the guys, you know, whatever. I'm calling guys. And they're like, Pete, a little busy right now. So, you know, yeah, I get it. You know, you're not, you know, when you're in the unit, you're the best. When you're not, you're the best, you know, kind of thing. But not even at that time, well-deserved, you know. But, yeah, you know, so, you know, I made a home and some guys did leave eventually because, you know, I told them the truth. You know, I was making more money. I did have weekends off, you know, and I was going to get promoted. And for some people it worked, and some came and some went back. And I just, you know, I just wasn't able to go back, you know. So, you know, I ended up back there, you know, and transferred back on 9/11, but that's fast forwarding many years forward.
Sidebar, for if there's anybody in the chat, because you just reminded me by mentioning him, I forgot to say this earlier. If any of you guys from ESU that are retired talk to Henry Medina on a regular basis, give him my business line, which is in the description of this video, of course, and send it to him because I want to get him on the show. I've been trying for a while, but I can't find him. So if one of you guys talks to him, tell him I'm looking for him, and I'd like to get him on. So that said, I mean, you go in there, it's an 8-year stint. And you're seeing the evolution of New York City at that time for the better from a different angle. You kind of saw the start of it in emergency. You're hands-on. You're doing these raids. You're kicking down these doors. Now you're doing the long game. Now you're doing the investigations. And it's very dangerous on that side of the world because we think of drug dealers sometimes, these guys hanging out on the streets. They're cocaine cowboys with the guns and, you know, in their waistbands and whatnot. But some of these guys are some of the customs agents that I've had on and have explained to me. A lot of them, at least the more major players, they're not thugs per se, as more they are businessmen. They're more business-like. So dealing with them is a little different. Tell me about that.
They constantly move. You got to be good. We had a very good team of guys and gals, detectives. You know, they knew it. I did some snoo work, like I said, but that's like in an unmarked car in uniform. It's nowhere near the same.
Right.
But even just the low-level B&B buy and bust things that we were doing still took, you know, a finesse. It took a knowledge of, you know, how to park, where to park, how to approach a set. You know, I mean, I suggested once that I could make a buy, and they all just laughed at me and said, "You look like a cop all day long. You know, you're not doing it." I still had the short hair from emergency, you know, high and tight, you know. But then I end up with a mullet, the goatee, and I look like a freaking nut. But you know, I got into that program. But it was great. I mean, the work was good. We got to do some really good cases. Got to work with, you know, some great people downtown in the Special Narcotics Bureau. Yeah, we got in some great cases. It was good. It was a good job. Good job. You can never stop the drug trade, but, you know, supply and demand. So
yeah, you can slow it down though.
Yeah, we put a dent in a few people, put a few people away, but there's always a guy looking to take his spot.
Mm-hmm. That's the sad part. Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. And there's always somebody with their hand out trying to buy it. So, you know, you can move them out of a building, and that building's very happy. Then they move to another one, and they're not so happy. So, yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah.
Just a few more notes. You retired in 2004. Before I get to that, I mean, 9/11 happens, and I've covered it before. Obviously, you know, you have a situation where ESU is hit very, very hard. You lose 14 guys. A lot of these guys you knew personally from having worked with them over the years. If you didn't work with them directly in two trucks, certainly you flew to other trucks and you got to know some of them. And temporarily, guys were brought back. I remember David Martinez telling me he had literally gone to Intel a few months before from Truck 7, I believe, and then he gets brought back. You get brought back. Jack Cambria had just went to hostage. He got brought back. Working during that time, a unique time. It had been so long, not that long, but still long enough since you'd been in ESU. But I imagine when you got back, it was like muscle memory. It was like you never left, despite the somber circumstances.
Very difficult. You know, I left under conditions. I didn't leave to hurt anybody, and I don't think anybody took it that way at all. But for me, walk into that. I remember they were in an auditorium. And the one truck guys were the first guys I think I saw. Billy was one of them, and there were, and understandably so. Now I hadn't been in the unit in so you're 01, so 5 years. I mean, I'm still close with everybody, but when you're out, it's different. I was doing a whole different gig, but it was hard to. I couldn't put myself in their place. Yeah, I knew guys. I knew, but we didn't know who was gone yet. Some of them was a pretty good idea, obviously. With the towers down already, I wasn't there. I was very fortunate, and I think I don't want to put myself in a place, but having not been an emergency certainly increased my chances of, not getting not getting killed. But had I been in my office at 9 a.m. where 8:45, which is what I would have been, had my daughter not been sick, and I had to stay home until the babysitter could get to the house while the events actually unfolded on TV. So, I mean, my office was at Center Street and just south of Canal, and it's not that far. And if a plane would have hit the Trade Center while I was in my office, certainly, like anybody else, I'd have been on my way over there, But I don't, I don't put myself in that position really. But thank God, the way I look at it is, my daughter, being sick, who knows? But I do spend for the last 20 years, almost every one of them with her in the morning, wherever we are. We worked together at Discovery Channel, which is in the 17th precinct for many years. And on 9/11, we'd go around the block to the 17th and, stand by, for that ceremony. That was rough, very difficult. Just driving there and, hearing it on the radio was just awful. My reassignment happened by, I went into the situation room in headquarters. I don't even know how I got in. There was so much confusion that I just walked right into the room. My old partner, I mentioned him earlier, Kevin Brown, was the administrative lieutenant for Tom Patel, who was the chief of SOD at the time. And Kevin turns to me and said, how'd you get in here? I said, what's the freaking difference? I said, Kevin, I have to be reassigned to emergency. I got to get over there. He said, yeah, go. It's done. Just go. So I went to my boss and I told him what I was doing. He said, okay, be careful. I mean, not to say being in something before qualifies you, but I was there in 93 and I was in Oklahoma in 95 and I didn't want to be directing traffic. The last place I could have been, they couldn't have kept me from there anyway. So they let me go. And the first people I ran into was at Stuyvesant, which was with Billy and the guys from One Truck. And it was awful. Like, what do you say? It's not going to be a welcome back or, big hugs. That wasn't about anything. It wasn't anything like that. So I stood around for a while. I didn't, I just watched, minding my business, trying to fit in somewhere. And Billy, if he's on there, he could attest to this. I said, what can I do? Well, I want to do something. What can I do? He said, Pete, I need a truck. We're walking. They were walking from Stuyvesant School all the way down to the Trade Center. It's a long walk with all that equipment. So, guys had, stuff on it, like pack mules. It was bad. So I went down to the site and there was a lot of vehicles, police department vehicles abandoned. So there was a rack truck, barrier truck. Guys know what they are. I climbed into it. No keys. I called STS. I got a guy on the phone. I said, how do I jumpstart this vehicle? He said, go underneath, pull the wires out, connect the pink one, the white one, the red one, whatever. Vroom, truck started. I turned it around, brought it right back to the school. And Billy's like, where'd you get that? I said, well, what's the difference where I got it? I said, here, it's yours. Take it. I stole it. He said, oh, man, this is great. And then until they could get another vehicle with keys, they use that. So, and then, I just kind of fell into place with the rest of the group. I lasted for a while and then got a little burnt. Just one day there was the only corpse that I had seen. It wasn't really there wasn't much left of the poor woman. She was virtually flat, like a piece of paper, like under a slab. And the grapple picked it up and we were all yelling to, put it down, because the woman was on it. And that was kind of a line for me. I went back and kind of just, admittedly just said, I need some time off the pile. This is, so I ended up sitting, doing things, little things, bringing some celebrities who come down and, just stay at the base of operations and get things people needed or whatever. And met some interesting people doing that. And the guys appreciated, an athlete coming. The Mets would come, and I think they came when we were still at Stuyvesant High School. But and then little by little, cops got recovered, and then there was, I was there for about 6 months, but I did have a job that I transferred out of, and I had cases, and I kind of had to go back to my desk. And Ron Wasson asked me to stay. He was the commanding officer, and I think it was at the Laris funeral afterwards. And I said, I really would, but a couple of years ago when all I was trying to do was get some parity and pay, nobody wanted to hear from me, and I went on my way. I said, look, I'll take the job and I'll stay, but and I made a few conditions. And at that time, and he agreed to all of them except one. I had a Category 1 car, which is a take-home car, and I live 50 miles north of the city. I said, I want my Category 1 car. And he said, I can't do that. I have captain's suit on. I said, well, here we go again. I just said, yeah, whatever. And then that was it. We were on a handshake, and I was pretty short. I was leaving in 2004. I was in a trademark counterfeiting group. I had a job to go to, pretty set up. So it was a tough decision, though, but wasn't something I was looking to go back to. I was moving on from the job itself, not just emergency. Really, can't move on from emergency. I still talk to a lot of guys. I mean, these guys always stand by you. Here I am, 20 years later. I get 18. And I'm working at a job. And my qualification, I needed to re-up my EMT certification. I hadn't been certified in 18 years since I left the job, which I got through emergency. And just by calling one guy, I was in the next group. And then I walk into that group, and there's guys' kids that I worked with. Their kids are in this group. Clario's kid, somebody else's kid. I was like, I was with this guy, Dave Isaacson. The guys who are listening, they know who I'm talking about. 35 years in the unit or whatever. Dave's like, hey, that's Clario's kid over there, and that's so-and-so's kid. I was like, and then, I started talking with them. It was just kind of fun. But, once an E-man, kind of, I guess, always an E-man, which I really do appreciate because it was the best time I ever had on the job. I was sorry I left. I just felt I had to do it.
You stuck to your guns, and that's commendable. For those of you that will listen to this, the audio version, and won't see it on YouTube, I highlighted Steve Stefanakis' comment. He says, when Pete and all the guys came back during the 9/11 period, it was completely welcomed. We needed them and never thought differently of them. And Billy Kennedy does confirm your story. Not that I ever thought you weren't telling the truth. He says he acquired a barrier truck for us.
That's a nice way to put it. Thank you.
He acquired.
That one, the statute of limitations has expired.
Yeah, and I think that day, honestly, anything went. Who cares?
Pretty much. Yeah, that was the point. Yep.
No problems there. Yeah. So you've been out, before I get to the rapid fire, you've been out almost as long as you were in. Out, in 20 and then out 18.
Yeah, almost 19.
Time flies.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the second retirement, but a couple more years. I'm still running around making money.
Go down to Florida, get that second house down
somewhere,
there.
Just playing golf, anywhere. And I just get a van. I'm single, and the kids are older, and I'm good. I need a camper and a golf clubs and a fishing pole. I'll be good. Maybe a dog.
I would say get the dog. The dog helps too.
I need a boxer. It'll have to be called Mojo. Mojo was the 2-truck dog.
Right.
That was a classic soldier in 2-truck.
It's funny because ESU's one of their mascots is Sylvester the cat, right?
That's right. Tomcat. Oh, it's a tomcat.
Tomcat. Okay.
Sylvester.
I thought it was Sylvester.
Yeah, okay. No. Well,
that's me being a dummy.
More like the F-14 Tomcat.
Tomcat. Okay, there you go. You see that's why I'm not an E-man. If I would have been in the STS, they would have asked me that question. I would have failed right then and there.
We could do honoraries. I could be wrong about that too. Somebody chime in. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that.
Well, this has been fun. And now we'll end as we always end, the rapid fire. 5 hit and run questions from me, 5 hit and run answers from me. You got to be quick, you got to be ready, but you can say pass if you want. Are you ready?
Sure.
All right, first. And if it's not G rated, you can say pass for this reason. Funniest call you ever responded to.
Funniest. Should pass. I'll think of something, but there's too many of them. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right. No worries. That's why you can say pass. Second most uplifting call you ever responded to.
Most what?
Uplifting.
Anytime you saved a life, and we did, enough times, and that was always never delivered a baby, but one was held by pants. I almost delivered it, but it wouldn't come out. It's because it wouldn't take her pants off. That was the first. But saving lives was always a good one. Save a jumper, things like that. Yeah.
There you go. Third, favorite cop show or cop movie?
Barney Miller, and I don't know. When I was in the apprehension team, we watched Navy SEALs relentlessly. So that's not really a cop thing, but it's a SWAT thing. And they used a lot of the same weapons that we were using, so it was very interesting. But Lethal Weapon?
I got to go on my end, just Rush Hour. I love all 3 Rush Hour movies, and I know the lines by heart. Jackie Chan. Yeah. So literally, my sister can tell you, I sit down, I watch all 3 of those movies. I cry laughing. And
I agree with that. Yeah,
they're great. Good. And I got to say,
there are so many great. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. My apologies.
I mean, there were some great cop shows, but most of them I don't really watch. But I did watch Hill Street Blues. That was before I was a cop. And of course I watch cops, but Barney Miller to me was a squad. That was the characters in a squad. It was, it was pretty good.
I'm glad you brought up cops. I gotta say, I was just about to say I've been binge watching all the old episodes from like the 90s and early 2000s because it brought back so many memories of my childhood watching it on Fox. Man, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
so
when they came, I believe it was 92. And they had never come before. Bratton let them do it. And we went with the production crew to Rosie O'Grady's on 7th Avenue in Manhattan. We met them there, and we had a discussion about what was going to happen. God forbid if they were ever us were in a situation where we needed a hand, which you see, occasionally they do get involved. And the guy said, we'll get involved. I said, I also want you to shut the freaking cameras off when you guys shut the cameras off. If you're not going to do that, you're not going to agree to that, we're not going to do the show. So he said, yeah, of course, we'll do that. So, we did it. It was fun. That one show was on. There was 2, I was in 2 that aired, 3 that aired. Another one was a bat that we caught in an apartment. You can find that one if you Google bat something. I don't know. I actually
looking for the full episodes.
have it on a CD. I have it on a CD, but there was a bunch. The bat one was pretty funny actually, but Jim McVeigh, you mentioned him earlier, he was in that too. But there was one that stands out, and I know a couple of guys remember this one was a guy named John Poltowski. Was a 2-truck guy, very nice guy. He on cops went to a job, and the job was that there was a rat in the bathroom of this lady's apartment. It's a hollow core door, cheap thing. So he hacks his way through with an axe and pokes his head in there. Look like Jack Nicholson, with the axe. It's Charlie, whatever the fuck the guy says. And then he goes in and he stands on the toilet and kills the rat with the blunt end of an axe. But he's standing on the toilet, and it was awful. Like to watch this E-Man, just instead, grab it with your hands. I don't know, do something, whatever. But he took a beating. I mean, he had to take off. He had to take vacation. He begged us to stop calling his house because if you remember, Michael Jackson wrote a song called Ben, and it was about a rat. There was a movie called Willard in the 70s, and the main rat in Ernest Borgnine was in the movie. You could Google this. This is a true story. So there was a rat named Ben, and then they came with a follow-up of that movie, and I believe it was called Ben. And Michael Jackson wrote a song called Ben. And it was Ben, the 2 of us, must be no more, whatever the fuck. And guys called him up and played that song time after time. His family got sick of it. It was bad. He begged us to stop doing it. That was kind of too truck. Most of the unit was like that though, relentlessly pulling pranks on each other. All good fun. Most guys could take it. Guys who couldn't, either went to another truck or, they left. I don't know. I don't know. Some guys just disappeared, but who knows? It was good. Great guys, man. I wouldn't trade 1 minute. My best time on the job was in emergency service. There's no doubt about it. Narcotics was good. Patrol was good. I love my partner, Kevin. But the things that we did in two truck in Harlem, unbelievable. You couldn't. We could talk for hours, and forget it if you got a bunch of us together drinking beer.
Mhm.
We got more stories than Disney. Let me tell you something. No matter who you talk to. Yep.
I'll have to hear the unedited version off the air soon. Fourth,
we can do that.
Favorite bar or restaurant in New York City?
Well, O'Farrell's, but it's not there anymore. It's now Hudson Yards.
Yes.
But the Gaff was a good one. 48 between 8th and 9th. Downtown by Court was always a good one too. Rags. Oh, geez, I almost forgot. Rags was in the 2-5. That was a two truck hangout. But too many bars.
And the last one, if you can grab a cop fresh out of STS, given your experience as an emergency, what advice would you give him or her?
Oh, just to keep your head on a swivel and keep learning from the senior guys. Don't pick a guy that you like and kind of follow him. You'll never know it all. Don't pretend to know it all. Keep working the ropes. Keep going over the truck. You never know what you're going to get into. That was one thing that we did do. We could have sat around doing nothing all day, but we didn't. The guys were rope guys. They would be somebody throw a piece of rope on the table, call out a knot. You'd have to tie the knot. Sometimes we just go play with the equipment downstairs. Use cut some steel. Use what's called a Caldor torch and burn through some steel. For things that might come along. Pay attention. Always ask questions. Keep asking questions. And the guy who won't answer a question, go to another guy, because that's not the guy you want to learn from.
Good point.
That's it.
Good point. Stick around. We'll say goodbye off the air. Any shout outs before we go? Before I say goodbye to the audience, any shout outs you want to give to anyone?
So all you guys, all y'all, you're all heroes in my book. Every one of you. And God bless the ones who didn't, who aren't here to do this show with us. But we'll never forget, right?
Yeah, of course. Right on. Stick around. Like I said, we'll say goodbye off the air. All right. I'm going to try to make sure I don't miss anybody, because I always miss one person when I'm saying goodbye to the audience, and I feel bad. So here we go. Joe Maliga, Howard Blank, retired out of Taru, Steven Stefanakis, of course, John Latanzio, Eugene Venezio, Billy Kennedy, Ruth Ann Griffin, Maureen McGovern, U Dizzy 1969. I'm going to see here. William Dempsey, Deep Clean as well. Hang on just a second. Steve-O, retired NYPD lieutenant. I think I mentioned you, Dizzy. I'll mention you again because I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss anybody. Invasion Media, Ray Ruiz. I got him in there too. Paul Perricone, of course. Trying to make sure I don't miss anybody else. All right. I think we're good. I, of course, have John Scribani here as well. And he says, Pete, you were a tremendous help to Lieutenant McArdle and me as we tried to manage the command post and WTC operations. Your steady approach was greatly appreciated. Thank you, John.
Scribani was the man down there as well with McArdle, side by side. Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
So I think I got
Anytime,
everybody.
John. Thank you.
I got everybody in there, and this was a great show. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Coming up next on the Mike the New Haven podcast. I'm excited about it. It was supposed to happen in May, got pushed back, but it's going to happen this Friday. He's only one of only six men, I should say. I can't speak today, who held every rank in FDNY history for Volume 24, The Best of the Bravest, interviews with the FDNY's elite. Retired FDNY Commissioner Dan Nigro will be here, so that should be an interesting show with him. In the meantime, on behalf of Pete Conlin, this has been Volume 20 of the E-Men inside the NYPD's Emergency Service Unit. I'm Mike Colón. We will see you next time. And as the E-Men like to say, anytime, baby. Have a good night. Take care.